So, Ash vs. Evil Dead, Episode 8, Ashes to Ashes. Wow. Just wow. Okay, so it starts off, Ash is making his way to the cabin, and he stumbles across a dead bird. Yeah, that's how it starts. Also, he thinks it's dead, picks it up and says something like, sorry, Tweety, everything dies around here. And then it comes alive, and then it throws it up against a tree, and it's quite graphic how that bird dies, because you actually see it die. And so he drops his backpack, or it's more like a bag actually. He drops his bag, takes off his robot hand, puts on his chainsaw, pulls out his boomstick, and says, "Honey, I'm home." And then the titles come up: Ash vs. Evil Dead. And then he's making his way toward the cabin. And then he looks over to the cross that's in the ground, because when he kills someone he makes the crosses. And he looks over and then he hears I don't think he hears it, but we hear Linda's voice from the first film when he gave the necklace, and how she's saying it's beautiful and she'll never take it off and shit like that. I was thinking, they've got it. And then he's making his way to the cabin, and he turns around and he sees Fisher. I forgot to mention that as Ash is making his way toward the cabin, before he turns around and sees Fisher, you can hear the bench just swinging and banging next to the cabin like it did in the first and second film. Like in the first film when Scott was approaching the cabin, the bench was just swinging and swinging, and then he looked at it and it stopped. That was a really good thing, that they've still got the bench in there, so that's really good. So he turns around and sees Fisher, and she decides to go and help him, defeat the evil. So they both go into the cabin, and when they go into the cabin, we see that it's gone to hell basically. Although this is a continuation from Evil Dead 2, not Evil Dead 1. So like all the borders are up in the windows and everything. So the borders are up in the windows. The moose head is still on the wall, and when Fisher looks at it, she gets a flashback of the first episode where her partner was killed by a deadite because it got chucked onto the horns of the moose. I think it's a moose. Yeah, it is a moose head. Then as Ash shuts the door, it falls off the wall. Basically the cabin it really has gone to hell. Like, no one's been in there for years, and so there's all leaves everywhere, and it's totally gone to hell. And so Ash takes off his chainsaw hand, puts back on his robot hand, and just plonks the Necronomicon down, just puts it down. And he mentions that when he was on his little trip, the book has to be buried where it all began, which is the cabin. So they're saying that it has to be buried where they found it, which would be in the cellar. So Fisher tries to get the cellar open, and Ash, she's just tugging on the chains in the cellar, and Ash gets a flashback of Cheryl, just as she was in the first film, just trying to make her way out the cellar, just banging on top of the cellar door. That shit me up, okay? That really did shit me up. I didn't expect to see it. Plus, I had my headphones in and full blast and everything, and that shit me up. Because in the first Evil Dead, Cheryl constantly was banging on the cellar door trying to get out, which she eventually does. But that bit definitely shit me up when I first saw it. So Fisher, trying to get the cellar open, recommends a crowbar, and Ash says, yeah, there's probably one out in the workshed. Here we go, we're going back to the workshed now. And she says, okay, let's go and get it. And he's like, no. Let me tell you something before we go into the workshed. Something's in there that you don't want to see. She's like, yeah, like what? My ex-girlfriend. Oh, your ex-girlfriend's in the workshed. Well, part of her. He then tells Fisher what exactly happened, and he says, she got possessed. I cut her head off with a shovel. Then she did this crazy dance in the moonlight. I put her head in a vice, and I cut it in with a chainsaw. I was like, "Yep, you sure did, Ash. You sure did." And that was like one of the best lines in the show, pretty much so far. Yeah, that scene alone. I don't care anything when it comes to flashbacks. That scene alone, best ever. That's it, done. Best ever. I could pretty much just end the review right now, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to. I'll talk it through. I'll talk it through. So Fisher approaches the Necronomicon on the side table, and there's still a picture of Annie there from Evil Dead 2, and I thought that was a really good homage too. And the table collapses. That was very random. It just collapsed. And then there's a hole, like a little gap in the wall, and the camera goes through the gap in the wall, and we then see a rat, or it could be a mouse, either one. It's probably a rat. And we then see a hand crawling, and I thought it would have been Ash's evil hand, but it's not a hand. Well, I've just contradicted myself now, because I said it was a hand, but it's not a hand. Because when it fully comes into frame, it's an arm. It's not a hand. And it opens its eye, and I thought, oh, come on, no, don't spoil it. That's over the top, we don't need that. But that was very strange. And then it cuts to Pablo and Kelly coming across some hitchhikers. And they say, I think they're British. They're either British or Australian. I can't work it out. So they come across some hitchhikers, and they say that they went past a cabin, and one of them wanted to stay there, but the bloke wouldn't, wanted to go elsewhere. And so it cuts back to Ash getting some electricity through the cabin, and so he does, and then he goes into the workshed, and he finds Linda's skull. It's just a skull now. There's nothing to it. I thought it was going to be something like, like rotted away and everything. Yes, it is rotted away. It's completely rotted away. But I thought it was going to be like bits still on there and the hair still there, just rotted, its teeth and everything. No, it's literally just a skull with a centipede coming out of it. And he's like, long time no see, Linda. Don't get up. Just don't get up. I'm just trying to get a crowbar. And so he does. He gets a crowbar, but the door shuts on him. He pulls the handle, but he pulls it off. Handle comes off. Door handle comes off. Fisher's inside the cabin. She can't hear him. He's banging at the door. Fisher. And then Fisher still at the cabin. And yes, the clock. The grandfather clock. Well, it's not a grandfather clock. The clock. It still makes exactly the same sound like it did in number 1. Where Cheryl was drawing the clock, and then it chimed, and then she drew the book. Funny thing here, actually, the tape recorder is still going, like it's still playing. It's either two things. It's either still playing, or the Deadites are making it play. Because as you know, if the tape recorder plays, the evil rises from the woods. And so it cuts back to Pablo and Kelly with the hitchhikers in the woods. And then as the hitchhikers start talking, I finally gathered, okay, they're not British. Well, actually, I think one of them is British, but I'm pretty sure that they're from New Zealand. Sidetracked. Anyway, so the hitchhikers part their ways. Well, no, they go off in a group and they part their ways with Pablo and Kelly. And then it cuts back to Ash in the workshed trying to get the door open still. And then we hear a voice saying, Ash, or something like that. Ash. And he's like, no. And of course it's Linda. The camera pans round to Linda's head in the voice. My only complaint with this is that, okay, yes, this is many years later and they had to have a recast, but it looks nothing like Linda. Of course it wouldn't, because it's a recast, of course, but absolutely nothing like Linda. It doesn't look like a Linda to me. But of course, this is a rant, you know. But anyway, back to the show. And so Linda is basically doing what all Deadites do, which is go back to their human form and trick people. And she's basically tricking Ash. That's to say, you know, we was going to go to Jacksonville after this, and Jacksonville was the place where Ash dreamed about, where his pet lizard Eli was. Let's not talk about that episode. Let's just move past that episode. Because I hate that episode. I genuinely do hate that episode. And so Ash tells Linda to basically shut it. And she then goes on about, it's because of that cop, isn't it? The cop. You love her instead of me, or something along those lines. And then she basically says the usual, she's gonna die here in the cabin. And that's pretty much all the Deadites say. And so then it cuts back to Fisher in the cabin, making her way, just looking round, and she finds a book. And she then finds a picture of the Kandarian dagger. And then we hear Nobi's voice. And he says something that we've never heard before, but he gets cut off. It basically says, if the Kandarian dagger gets placed upon the Necronomicon, and then Ash comes in, and then that's where it stopped. And so we didn't know what Nobi was going to say after that. And then Ash is like, why is this happening to me? Why me? And he basically just wants to go back to his normal self, when he just, you know, had a normal life. And so he was talking about making a life with Fisher, because he likes Fisher. So he goes up to Fisher, kisses her, and then Ash's hand comes into frame. It's his possessed hand. And Fisher's like, that hand, you know, what's wrong? What's wrong with you? Your hand, what's wrong with your hand? And she's like, that hand's like the one that Ruby had. And by this point, I was thinking, okay, this is not Ash. And then in the next scene, we see Ash trying to make his way out of the workshed. So quite clearly, this is not Ash anymore. This is evil Ash. And yet again, it cuts back to Ash in the workshed, and Linda's basically, basically, she's saying how good she is. Yeah. Basically, she's saying, I'll give you good head. You're never gonna have a fuck like me ever again. You know, so it's like, okay, this is pushing the odds. But, she then, her head starts bleeding. Before that happens, actually, Ash looks over, on the wall, and it's got like this, like the chalk mark of the chainsaw. Like in Evil Dead 2, he opened it and he went, chainsaw. Where did I put the chainsaw? And then Linda obviously comes in, and yeah, so obviously the chainsaw's gone. Then her head starts bleeding from that point forward. And I was like, my reaction when it started bleeding, I was just watching it, and then the head started bleeding, and I was like, quite unexpected. And then all these saws on the wall start coming at Ash and everything, and then a bear trap tries to attack Ash, and obviously Linda's doing it, you know. And then it cuts back to, I'm going to use this, Evil Ash, and Fisher, and they're, you know, obviously she's running through the corridor, Ash comes out, throws her, I like it when he says, you broke my heart, now I'm going to break your fucking skull. I thought that was pretty good. And then it kind of turned, seriously, this is what I thought of, it kind of turned into the British TV show Bottom with Adrian Edmondson and Rick Mayall, because he puts her head in the fridge and just starts banging it inside the fridge. I was like, this isn't Evil Dead, this is Bottom. Yeah, and then she, you know, grabs a cleaver, chops off his evil hand that's still crawling as she's screaming, and then she cuts it into several pieces. And Ash is like, oh, that's good. The hand, it got, you know, it took control over me. It's a good job I still have this one to finish the job. And then this bit really shocked me, actually. This bit really shocked me. He grabbed the cleaver, put it right in Fish's neck. Well, not the neck, better here. And that's it. She's dead, pretty much. And then she goes into the front room and then falls on the moose's horn, which is exactly the same way her partner died. And I thought that was really shocking, actually, because if they do make a second season, she's not going to be in it because she's dead. I thought that was quite a shame, actually. Fish is a very, very strong female character, and you don't really get that in horror movies, although Sigourney Weaver in Aliens, fanboy right here. Yeah, you don't really get that in horror films, but there you go, a strong female character has died, which is quite a shame, actually. Quite a shame. So anyway, it cuts back to Ash in the workshed, and the bear trap pulls off his robot hand, revealing his stump, the hand, or where his hand used to be, I should say. And then he smashes Linda's head. Before doing that, he says, "Yeah, you always talk too much." And then he smashes Linda's head with the crowbar. And then he comes in and he finds Fisher impaled on the spikes, the moose head. And then Pablo and Kelly walk in. And they're like, "What did you do? Was she a deadite?" He's like, "No, I didn't do it. But I did do it. Look, there was another me. And I didn't do it, but I did do it." And so Ash now has to find his evil alter ego. And so he does. He finds it. And then they have a fight. But this is the best part about it. As they're fighting, they're telling each other their weaknesses. And like, as they punch each other, they go, "Oh, false knee." The real Ash whacks Ash in the leg with a crowbar. And then he goes, "False teeth." And then he punches him in the face and his false teeth drop out. And then evil Ash goes by the piano and goes, "Weak shoulder." And then he pushes the piano in Ash's shoulder. And then it ends by them just strangling each other, saying "time to die," and that's it. That's where the episode ends. And then it'll be like episode 9 will be a continuation of that, and then hopefully episode 10 will end the season. And that's it for Ash vs Evil Dead episode 8, Ashes to Ashes. Probably the best episode so far. It's the one that has the most hype, I think, because it goes back to the cabin and everything. And personally, all around, I thought it was a brilliant episode. So that's been my review for Ash vs Evil Dead episode 8, Ashes to Ashes. Thanks for watching. Next Saturday will be Ash vs Evil Dead episode 9. I'm so hyped. What's going to happen to Ash? No one knows. So, unless you read spoilers on the internet. Don't do that! Don't read spoilers! Bastard. So, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more reviews. And if you can't tell what my next brief review will be... Anyway, thanks for watching. See you next time.